Okay, let's call to order the Sustainability Committee for South Kingstown. It's May 19th, 2025, 5:59 PM. Roll call.
Christine Mueller, Elizabeth White.
Gail Meisner. Joanne Riccitelli.
Mark Russo, staff liaison, and
Charlotte Canner, recycling coordinator.
Welcome. Okay, minutes for last month's meeting. Does anybody move to accept?
I have a question about it.
I think we need to move in second before we talk about it.
Okay.
I move to accept.
Okay, any second?
I guess I can second it.
Okay. Discussion.
I just don't understand what 3D means.
Uh,
Sign up sheet for SUSCOM's email newsletter.
Oh, we had suggested last time that if people stop by, that we try to get emails from them, so we could send them
Okay.
a newsletter once we actually start to do that.
Okay.
I
All
hope to
right.
do sometime soon.
Yes. Okay. Thanks.
Anything else? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so that's approved. Correspondence.
so you had the one, Joanne sent that from
I sent-
Patrick Quinn,
Yep.
so,
I sent that around to everybody. I sent
Yep.
that to you as well, right?
Mhm.
So Patrick is kind of a friend. A friend was removed. He's married to Elizabeth Scott, who did our water quality workshop. And I was talking with the both of them about the committee and what we were working on, and he said he might be interested. So we chatted about it a little bit, and I told him about the sustainable housing proposal that was, that was kind of circulating around, and he said he had some ideas about, resources that might be useful for that, and so sent that email in response to that conversation. And then when I talked to him afterwards, and I encouraged him to, think about joining the committee, and he said that he has submitted paperwork. I don't know if there's any information about that. Okay, so it would just be between, like, the town council would just let him know when to appear, kind of thing.
yeah, we'll go to the town clerk will schedule
Okay.
the interview.
So he said he submitted it. Hopefully he did the right things, and he'll actually move ahead and join the committee, which would be great. And I did think that some of the points that he made in that email, I don't know if you saw it before you did your report,
I saw it
that we'll
afterwards.
get to, that we could incorporate maybe some of that as we go forward. So that's the scoop on Patrick.
Very good.
Okay, so Charlotte, welcome.
Okay, thank you. Let's see. I don't know about what you want to know about me first before I dive in, but
I think you should
I
just, a quick,
yeah. Let's see. Just a little background of how I got here. Well, I'm from Connecticut, but very familiar with Rhode Island through my parents and all whatever. But I've only been living here since September. Before this, I was living in San Francisco, where I took a composting class, and that got me hooked on a lot of things related to soil and compost and green team, and I, did a lot related. Eventually, I worked as an integrated pest management advocate, which actually I might bring up later if you ever have questions about water quality, because I worked for a water pollution prevention program, teaching about pesticides and things, simultaneously teaching about composting. I also worked as on a grant program called the Community Composting for Green Spaces, sponsored by Cal Recycle. So it was initiating or developing community composting sites across the state of California. I worked mostly in Sacramento and Northern California. Since coming here in September, I took the food recovery class at URI. I've been volunteering at Harvest Cycle. I work with Epic Renewal sometimes, which is in Providence, and I worked at the school recycling project with Gail as well. And now I work as the recycling coordinator. So any questions before or anything else you want me to address before?
The integrated pest management stuff is interesting.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it's interesting to everybody, but, is what you were doing there in any way similar to things that might be going on here? Is there any town level activity in that kind of thing?
Well.
Or state level for that matter?
As far as I know, there's no, I mean, so integrated pest management is something that's taught like at the Master Gardener program, and like it's a kind of a gardening thing, but it's also used for indoors as well. It's just less toxic pest management, or doing a lot of steps before we reach for the pesticides. The program that I worked for in California was called Our Water, Our World. I worked as an independent contractor, and I was contracted by water agencies or like water or like counties and their clean water programs. And I would go into retail stores and teach associates and customers about using less toxic products. I also provided like signage on the shelves and handouts about dealing with ants and rats and weeds and all this without reaching for the toxic stuff. I haven't found a similar program in the state of Rhode Island, which is kind of surprising, being we are the ocean state. So I have reached out to a few places. Well, prior to being hired for this role, I was reaching out to like I think the Northern Rhode Island Conservation District and a few of those to see if I could provide some sort of program, because I think it's important. And it's and I know a lot of people garden here and care about their properties, and they also care about the ocean, so it's just kind of connecting that.
I wonder if our local Master Gardener program includes, I haven't,
They do.
Yeah,
They
they
have a
do.
lot of IPM education in the program, but then they also, in any of their gardens, like IPM is the one and only. Pesticides are like very tightly controlled to be like signed out and very sparsely used. So they're definitely interested in it, but I don't know if they have any kind of reach beyond like the
Their
people
own.
that they teach, who then kind of casually teach. I don't know that there's anyone like going into, you know.
Yeah, I was going into like Home Depot and Ace Hardware,
Right.
and like Home Depot in California really liked the program, and they wanted, signs that were like highlighted the less toxic products, things, which I was very impressed about.
In
Because
Rhode
there's,
I mean, Roundup is still front and center.
oh, it still is in California
It is?
too,
Oh.
but we also could highlight the one less toxic weed killer on the market too. So yeah, there's a lot of that, but.
well, that's certainly
Okay.
something that would be nice for us to be able to
Mm.
share,
Yeah.
and probably should talk to people at Master Gardeners. I don't know if that's within your purview, whether what your job would let you kind of reach out into kind of related areas, or if
It
there's
would-
even any time for that, but,
It would
or
probably be
we
for
could.
my side gig, not for recycling coordinator, but yeah. But I'm willing to do that outside of
Okay.
this if it's okay.
So we should think about whether we can, and how we could try to, in this newsletter that we will get to, I swear I will, it would be nice just to start putting, here's an idea about this, here's an idea about this. And with links to appropriate resources and stuff. So maybe we could do something like that.
Nobody talks about legislating against it, right? They just talk, this is just informational, what you're talking about
Oh,
and what
well,
they're talking about, right?
Yeah.
URI does not do any
Yeah, it's not
legislative.
legislative. I have written a testimony for again, there's a bill about rodenticides in the state legislature right now, so I wrote testimony for that, but yeah, no, it wasn't really advocating at the legislative level or what I was doing. It was more just like teaching the general public about dealing with this stuff.
I think
And
some
I-
state just came up with.
I agree with you, Joanne. I mean, you guys are looking for something more than water quality and composting, so this may be your next step is natural pesticides.
I mean, not to, I don't know, this is oversharing or inappropriate, but walking around here seeing all like the pesticide application signs on lawns and stuff.
They're
It's
so
like,
bad.
I walked my dog by the marina and the building with the lawn directly on the water. And I'm like, has a sign. I'm just like, what is going on here? So, anyway.
Florida has a new passed a law.
Ooh.
I know,
Florida?
right? So Florida did, and they, if you're like on a waterway, which is like most of Florida, right? Because you're not in the like the ocean, you're on a canal, right?
Yeah.
About like what you can do for both pesticides and fertilizer, because like that's
Oh,
where the
yeah.
algae blooms are coming
That's
from, right?
important,
Like
yeah.
the fertilizer use. I'll have to pull it up. I pulled it up a while ago to look at it. And like certain times of the year, there you cannot apply anything,
Wow.
which is pretty much like it was like their whole rainy season because they don't want it to just wash off.
Yeah.
And they very tightly. I don't know if it was, I want to say it was a whole state, but it may have been certain counties.
Yeah.
But like you know how big a county is, like it's pretty much Rhode Island,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Like
right.
the counties in Florida are huge. I'll have to pull it back up. I saved it.
Because it feels like you the only way you could control it would be by sales. I mean, because you can't
Right.
enforce application. I mean, that would be
Right. So like it's like there's no application during like from this month to this month. Pretty much like we have the no dogs on the beach. Like you know,
Yeah.
it's a huge chunk of the year that you cannot apply anything to your lawn. It's like
It is. It's probably not sales. It's probably.
oh,
like
good. Well, because the first time you
tattletale.
said they couldn't sell it.
Oh, they
oh
couldn't
no,
sell it?
oh no, I don't know if it was I don't remember like
Okay.
specifically enough.
I mean, that-
But a lot of it gets applied by those people who put the signs up, right? Like Joe Schmo putting it on his own lawn isn't putting a sign up.
Yeah.
So like a lot of this is like I see my damn neighbors do it. Like they have like True Green come and then they have a Franken Green lawn.
And then they brag about it, right?
They complain about how often they have to mow.
I do have a presentation related to composting, but I don't know if you want to like go through more discussion first and then come back to that, or.
see what you're up to.
Well, I realized I had a whole like printout more, but I didn't print it out. But like as recycling coordinator, I've only been here doing this job for like 3 weeks. My goal is increasing recycling diversion in this area. I think it's at like 23% is the South Kingstown. The goal is 35. Well,
Really, we're only at
I
23.
think it's around 23 or 25 maybe, but I think 23 is probably, actually, yeah, it's got to be 23 because that's probably the
I'm s-
highest.
23%. I don't know what that number
Diversion,
means.
so like out of all of the trash, this is municipal, so residential waste, trash and recycling going to the transfer station or being picked up by haulers, 23% of it is going to, is
It is
recyclable.
recyclable.
I
And
wait.
those, by weight, tons, yeah. The state goal is 35%. I'm pretty sure the only towns that are getting even close to that are Charlestown and North Kingstown, our neighbors, so. But Narragansett and South Kingstown are pretty good at like 23%. There's many other towns that are doing way worse than us, but that's not, we shouldn't be comparing, we're just saying, we should still be getting better.
I mean, is part of your job to talk to people in Charlestown and North Kingstown
I-
to see what they're doing that might?
That is my, part of my goal to like, cause this job is very much,
You're making it up as you
making
go.
it what I, doing what I can or doing what I like, figuring out ways to do it. So my goal with this role is increasing diversion by talking to our neighbors in Charlestown and North Kingstown, meeting with the haulers to see how we can fix, and get the customers recycling better. And I was debating which maybe you guys could help me with it, like surveying the town or residents, to like see how they can, people can get more information about recycling or what are the barriers? Like why are people doing such a bad job? And I had another thought that now it's slipped my mind, but I'm also doing a lot of outreach tabling classes. I'm going to do 3 classes, like a series at the library this summer, and I'm trying to get into some other places to do a little bit more outreach like that.
Did you say tabling?
Tabling, yeah. So like going to a farmer's market and setting up an informational table about recycling and composting. And then the other part of my job, which I feel like was why I was hired, is I'm very passionate about composting. So I'm trying to increase backyard composting. But then I know that I watched your meeting from last month. I know that you all are very excited about some other way of composting in South Kingstown. So I have a presentation on that, if you would like to. But any questions before?
So, yeah, I have a question. I'm sort of stuck on these percentages.
Okay,
Sorry.
that's fine, yeah.
But, I mean, are we also tracking raw numbers? Because,
Yes.
you know, if we're better, right, if we're better across the board, then the percentages might not change, but there's less trash. You know what I'm saying? So, you
I
know-
do know what you're saying, and I think I can find out the numbers for you. We are tracking tons overall.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, it is the numbers. I do remember looking at the last report, and for some reason our weights are going down, and I think
That's good.
there's something that was like seemed off about it. And the thought was that it's because recycling is getting lighter, maybe. Recyclables are getting lighter.
Like
So there's less
more
recyclable.
paper or something
yeah.
like that.
Plastics are getting thinner too.
Yeah, I think that's, and aluminum cans might even be getting thinner as well.
People are using less plastic all around.
Yeah. Oh, that's what it was. I think the recyclables, unfortunately, are going down
Oh.
By weight.
by weight and percentage, but I think it's the weight. And I asked Bonnie, the previous recycling coordinator, and she said the theory is, or the hypothesis or whatever, I don't know, is that it's because the weight is going down.
Can I throw one idea out there that I threw this to Bonnie, and she
Sure.
didn't think it was possible, but I'm just gonna throw that out there again.
Please.
Maybe you've seen it in California or something.
Yeah.
One of the things that I noticed when we built a house, so we built a home, and I couldn't believe after they unboxed all these windows, right? They come in these beautiful, huge cardboard boxes, right? They were throwing them out, and I was like, whoa, 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 we're not doing that. We're gonna recycle these. There is no way for there's no commercial recycling. So you can get, unless you also pull a recyclable dumpster, which no contractors do. They just don't do that, and I'm guessing some businesses probably do, but like a home site, and I'm sure this probably applies to other areas, but this is just the one thing that I see, is that they'll pull a dumpster and you can put some stuff in there, and everything goes in there because it's the only spot. And unless you have a crazy person like me who then takes and breaks down all those boxes and brings them to
Yeah.
residential recycling, it's crazy, and they just otherwise they all get thrown out.
They don't care.
I mean,
I'm
commercial,
Yeah.
it's I really just learned this too on this job, but commercial businesses,
don't have to
schools, I think school is considered commercial, buildings or properties with 4, 5 or more units, like residences on it, are considered businesses, so they're not required to recycle.
Right.
Or commercial, so they're not, so condominiums, big apartment buildings with more than 4 units are considered commercial. I don't know how to change that. I'd be happy to know.
It would be the builder happened to be my dad.
Yeah.
I was like,
You gotta go.
He was like, he's like, I used to be able to go back in the day. So when he says used to, he's talking the 80s and the 90s. He's like, I used to be able to go to the dump and unload, and I'd take all my boxes, because they don't want to pay to get rid of it, right? Yeah. So he's like, I used to be able to unload. I'd fill up the truck with all the recyclables from the week, and on a Friday afternoon, and I'd drop them all, and there was a section, I think, in that big building. He's like, and I just unloaded them all, and it was great, and I drove away. No big deal.
Well,
He's like, you can't do that anymore.
at the transfer station, I believe there is still commercial recycling. It's just not mandatory, so it's probably utilized.
He said
way
they,
less.
where do you do it?
So you gotta drive around the back?
So then you get charged for it then.
Or you gotta
Oh
go to the
yeah, you
scale?
would be
So you
charged
get
for it
charged for
because
it.
it's commercial.
Oh, so there's not free commercial recycling like there is residential.
Huh. So that's an SK you're talking?
Yes.
Interesting.
But it.
So they don't care then,
Can
because
you,
it's always
can you
right.
separate it though? You can even, I mean, you
Oh,
can,
I'm sorry?
you have to
It's always
pay,
the price then.
but
You have to pay.
regardless, you can separate it.
Yeah, yeah, when you dump it, it's usually a dump truck or a trash truck or something, would just dump it on the ground and then payloader would come in and scoop it into the hopper to go and recycle.
Okay.
So someone is going to separate it.
Well, so it should be, theoretically,
like-
should be separated when you drop it off.
Right.
And
It's,
then
it's, yeah, dumped in a separate
separate from the
spot.
trash.
And
We don't see that as, okay. I can't picture it because I can't picture it.
Yeah.
Would
You
it be,
see it if you were like at the drop-off windows, like unloading your own vehicle,
yeah,
but
which I
like you're
do.
not really supposed to like walk over there and
Okay.
look at
but
it.
would it be possible to have different fees, like for commercial purposes, that the regular waste has a certain fee to dump and then the recyclables would be significantly less?
Yes,
I
so
mean-
that's a rich question.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. I mean, I think there is a difference. I just don't know what the difference is. I
Ah.
could probably find it, actually. It's probably sitting on a piece of paper on my desk right now.
Okay.
Well, there's
Because
probably, there's a
there's
reason to do it, I'll
residential and
betcha.
then there's
Like
commercial
when they
as
take it
well.
up to Johnston, I betcha they, right, they get charged differently.
Well, don't you, we get paid for our recycling, don't we?
There is,
Isn't that what Rich said? Do we
I
get
think if you
You get
reach that
money
threshold
back.
of 35%, then you start.
recouping? Okay.
yeah, I think you get below it too. It's
Oh.
like percentage above.
Money
You
back.
get money back, but we're not like paid for it. We
Yeah,
just
but
get
like,
money
doesn't it
back.
offset some of your,
Yes.
your dump fee for the other stuff?
Yeah, yes.
So there is an incentive for the town to want to do that. The challenge would be that whoever's dumping the stuff would have to have a whole truckload of one thing versus the other, not a mixed
Yeah.
truckload, which should be possible for
Bins would
bigger,
They'd have, if you're
Yeah.
building a house, you'd have to.
theoretically possible, but there's no incentive to do it. So if there were, you
Yeah.
know, so if commercial people are, well, so they're not bothering, they're paying the same rate, they're not bothering to separate things out because it's all costing them the same amount anyway.
Well, it's the same as for, if you are residents, you don't pay for recycling either. You just, it comes with the service, so you don't, you're supposed to do it, but you don't really get paid. And there's like things that are put in place, like we could ask the hauler to not pick up the trash if there's no recycling as well.
They do that in Cranston.
Okay,
You-
yeah.
Yeah, that you have to recycle or they won't pick up your trash.
Yeah, we've like discussed that with the haulers. I don't know if it's actually enforced, but it's an option. But yeah, I mean, residents don't pay for recycling either, but some people still do it to make the trash cheaper. Yes, there's lots of ins and outs that I'm still learning of, all like the why this and the different rates and all this stuff,
Mhm.
so, yeah.
Yeah, but if you figure out how to create financial incentives, then the rest will follow.
Yeah.
True.
The question is how, and then, you know, what other people in the state are doing. If only Cranston is doing it and everybody hates Cranston, all the haulers, and they don't want to work there or whatever,
Yeah.
then that's one story. But if it's like a third of the state does it, then why not?
Yeah.
Go ahead and go that way. Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna switch gears here a little bit. Yes, based on what I know that you've been interested in, getting more composting in South Kingstown. So I'm presenting the middle ground between backyard and large scale, which is community composting. And I think it could work in South Kingstown, so I'm gonna explain what community composting is, why this is maybe a good option, or we'll feel it out. How does it work? Any concerns? I have a few examples for you. So the reason I'm talking about this is because, okay, so this is the hierarchy to reduce food waste and grow community. Of course, source reduction, not wasting food is the best, feeding people and animals, and then home composting. So I'm still going to be really pushing the backyard composting. I love the backyard composting, and that is the best way to keep the resources close, to reduce fossil fuels. Do you have a question?
No, I'm just really proud of you for saying people first, then animals.
Oh.
Feeding people, then animals.
Oh, yes, feeding people and then animals too, yes. Well, because, you know, animals can eat food that
People can't.
And then there's but I'm going to talk about community composting, which is just the next step in after home composting. But to give you an example, then there's medium scale locally based, which I would consider Earth Care Farms, something like that. They're probably similar. They're somewhere in the middle between like large scale and medium scale, but they're definitely locally based. And then centralized composting, you know, in my mind is kind of like Black Earth or Bootstrap. They take it pretty far away to a larger facility. Like in California, San Francisco composted. They had municipal carts. They took it. Compost went to Gilroy, which is like 80 miles from San Francisco, to a really massive place. And then, of course, landfill is the last. But we're going to talk here kind of in the middle. So what is community composting? It's, again, it's just bigger than backyard composting, but smaller than a large scale. It's decentralized. It's often volunteer run, and it's focusing on managing the local inputs and producing compost for the local community. So really seeing waste as a resource and keeping that resource in the community. It promotes community partnerships and connections, and it can be anywhere from a 3-bin system at a community garden to a much larger, you know, windrow system on a small farm. But really just the idea is that it's decentralized. There's lots of maybe little sites throughout a community, and it really promotes more community building and community involvement, as opposed to just throwing it in a bin and off it goes. I did check Rhode Island regulations. To be considered a small-scale composter, you have to create less than 25 cubic yards annually, I believe, which is pretty
It's not that
small.
much, yeah.
I think
That's the
that is a
output.
lot. That's the output. Cubic yards, I mean, if you think of like a 3-bin system, like one of those is a cubic yard. So filling that 25, it's big enough. But then once you go over that, there's more regulations, and there's more rules and things like that. So, but many small scale in a community can work. Again, the benefits of community composting: it keeps money in the community instead of just paying a company to take things away. It promotes social and these are from Institute of Local Self-Reliance. Institute. Oh, I always skip I mess up the letters. Circulates dollars in the community, promotes social inclusion and empowerment. It can green neighborhoods. You know, wouldn't you rather have a community garden in your backyard as opposed to a large-scale composting facility? It builds healthy soils, supports local food production, and embeds a culture of composting in the community. And it can create jobs for local people as well. But simply put, when materials are collected and transported out of the community for processing, few, if any, of these benefits are realized at the local level. And very simply, community composting is cheaper than large scale. It's faster startup. There's no permitting if it's really small, less regulation, and it keeps those resources very close.
So no permitting if it's under 25, is that,
Yeah.
that's,
Yeah, then there's medium scale level, which might require certain regulations I didn't read too closely, and then there's large scale. But I know I've spoken to Jane at Earth Care. She's been going through this permitting process for her new spot in Sterling, Connecticut for like 2 years. So, and it's still not even close. So it takes a lot. And this is kind of just, what are our other options? Of course, backyard composting is ideal, and I have talked to lots of South Kingstown residents lately, and many people do compost in their backyard, and that is awesome, and that's what we should be still promoting, but not everyone can do it, not everyone wants to do it, not everyone has the time or the space. A large-scale facility is not going to be happening in South Kingstown or, unfortunately, in Rhode Island for a while. There was money for a large-scale facility in Rhode Island with the $18 million grant from the EPA that has now been canceled. So I don't know if that's ever going to happen. And relying on the state to implement like statewide regulations and a statewide system will take a very long time, if ever. Can't even pass our bottle bill, so I don't even know what this would take. And Black Earth Compost is a fantastic company. I do appreciate what they do, and they do a great job. And we should also encourage people to use them in the community for pickup, people who don't want to do any option, but they still want to compost. Basically, we should be composting at all scales and promoting it in any way we can, because everyone has different needs. So quickly, what does community composting look like? We get inputs, usually, so like food scraps, usually from residents. I would recommend starting here, just starting small with our community, our neighbors who are interested, but you can always expand to schools, community centers, businesses, getting carbon materials from arborists, mills, woodworkers, and manure from local farmers. We can create drop-off sites or collection sites for this waste, which could be community centers, libraries, farmers markets, co-housing developments. I know Harvest Cycle in Providence has drop-off points at many libraries for sure. Community gardens wasn't on there, but that's another one. And then, of course, there's where do we make the compost, the production sites. Community gardens, definitely the easiest to start up, because usually there already is a compost area at a community garden. But then there could be parks, community centers with a little bit of extra space. It can be done in a parking lot. I mean, I've seen it done in a lot of different places. Places of worship, schools. If there's a farm that wants to, let us use a little corner of it, or even a residential property who just, someone who might have a really large property and are fine with like the little street facing area be composting or something. There's a lot of options, but there's also, there's a lot of ideas, but then we just have to find them. And then there could be different systems, anyway from like a 2 or 3 bin system or a 10 bin system. Wire bins, these are all examples of, well, except for this one, these are all examples of community compost sites that I have seen. Just like, a very simple bay system, pallet system, nice, tumblers even, they don't take a lot, but they do work. They keep things clean. There's labor, so we'd have to figure out, there's lots to do with the community composting, with any kind of composting. So this is, what we would do, turning the piles, building piles, recruiting new donors and partners. And then who would do that? Many times it's volunteers, or it could be subscribers, people who drop off the food. There could be a paid site operator. Not going to do all of that, but I'm here to help for parts of it, the recycling coordinator. And then, of course, cost. This does cost some, but not a ton. There are, we have to buy materials, signage, marketing, and if there is labor, paid labor. Some funding sources, grants, of course, less grants now, but there are some. Rhode Island Resource Recovery just released some grant opportunity. It's due July 3rd. I don't know how they feel about community composting, so I don't know how they feel about funding something like this, but
So what are the
there's
grants
something
for,
there.
do you know?
It would be for like signage or like recycling signage, printed material for like door hangers for, it was not necessarily like composting funds, it's like recycling and potentially composting, backyard especially. But then there's other, funding sources, fundraising, subscriptions. I don't know about that. That was a big question mark about how the town gets involved. And then, of course, there's concerns. People are always worried about the smell, which they're really not that bad. There are ways to get rid of the smell on the rodents. I mean, it shouldn't smell, but there are rodents. There's ways to get around that. There is illegal dumping. If you offer a place to put things, people really go overboard. People might just not be interested or complain. There's sure to be that. And then consistency of volunteer participation can be a problem. can talk about other concerns after, I guess, but please bring them up. And then real quick, I have 3 examples just to show you. This example, LA Compost is a big company now, actually, but it started off as a really small community composter in LA. They just, in 2013, there were just some volunteers, friends, and families composting and collecting here and there by bike, but then they've expanded. Now they have 12 drop-off compost hubs where compost is produced. They also drop off at 16 farmers markets, and they use a co-op model, so people pay, but they also volunteer as well. And they are fully recognized by the city of LA as a very, I don't know what the word is, a good option for composting. In addition, now LA does have municipal composting, but they still promote LA Compost as an option as well. Much closer to home, we have Harbor Cycle in Providence. They have 17 drop-off sites for their food scraps. They have paid subscribers. You pay anywhere from like $10 to $20 a month, I think, and more if you want it picked up by bicycle at your house, but it's like $10 if you just want to bring it to a spot. They make their compost, I think, at definitely one place. This is Ring Street Garden, where they make compost. They might have one other processing place as well. And in 2024, they diverted 310,000 pounds of food scraps from the landfill and redistributed 1,500 gallons of compost to their subscribers. I will say they do utilize Remix Organics to divert some of their compost because they can't, their space isn't, they only have like 8 of these, so they can't process everything that they get. And then the program that this is the last little section here. This is a program that I worked on in California, sponsored by Cal Recycle. It was a $1.5 million grant over 2.5 years. And during that period of time, we diverted 5,000 tons of material with 117 sites across the state. That comes to about $290 a ton, which is pretty good. I don't know what landfilling is, but it's a lot more. I did know at some point. And that includes like legal fees, soil testing, fiscal sponsorship, all these other things that we don't necessarily have to deal with at a very tiny level. And and one of the sites that I worked with, Find Out Farms in Sacramento, it was this guy, Matthew. He bought a house in Sacramento and had a massive yard, and he wanted to turn his yard into like an educational, gardening, composting space. So he created, with our help, he created a composting facility basically in his yard with chickens and, he had animals, he had a garden, he has like a native plant garden, and he lives there. We only gave him $1,400 for infrastructure and tools, and we paid him over 14 months, we paid him almost $13,000 for his labor. It was a very small amount. It was like he was working almost full time, but we were able to pay him for 8 hours a week of his time. And he was able to divert 17,000 pounds of food scraps from like local businesses, women's shelter, and some other sources, food, like neighbors dropping off as well. And that doesn't count the like insane piles of wood chips that he would get from arborists as well. And he just utilized small windrows, which is like, I don't know where I can see it, but back there is a windrow, just like a pile. Worm bins, wire bins, those geo bins. And that's, so then there's next steps. I don't really know what comes next, but these are many of the things that could come next. But I guess discussion would be next, and then we can kind of go from there. And I do have some handouts as well. So I'll leave that up.
This is great.
Yeah.
This is really.
And then I have some handouts if you want to read a little bit more.
This
Take
is
a pass.
such a big topic. And ideally, it should be illegal to put organic waste into the garbage.
I agree.
I
What-
agree.
But what can be done to like to have such a
enforce that,
law
yeah.
to
Yeah.
well first just to have a law like that is the first step, because with the law comes education. Not everyone will follow it, but people
Yeah.
will start to think about it and talk about it at least.
Yeah.
And then of course then it's enforcement, and but it's tricky.
So are you aware of countries that it is illegal?
I mean, there are
I feel like
states.
there are you.
There's states that it's illegal?
California and
I think
Vermont have
California.
mandatory composting. You may not put your food scraps may not go into trash in both California and Vermont. And we also have a state law that like certain things like our schools by law should be composting.
Yeah.
But we don't enforce it. We can't even enforce it in our schools, our publicly owned schools that are like, when you go all the way back up the ladder, like, are like, in the end, pretty much ruled by the same people who made the laws. Like, if we need to start there, in my opinion, because the law exists and it needs to be enforced and it needs to be financially feasible.
I'm from Switzerland, and in the community I have lived, they now have everyone separates, and organic waste is picked up separately. And I'm currently organizing an environmental conference in the UK, and I asked, well, at that center where we will have the conference, is there composting? Like, what is happening with the, They said, oh, we all separate our garbage. Like in the UK, that's just separately picked up. That's just normal now.
Yeah, 3 separate bins, recycling, compost,
Exactly.
and trash.
Yeah.
Yep. What do we know about how the Rose Hill drop-off site has gone since it started? It's been, what, 3 months now, something like that?
I think it's been longer than
It's
that.
longer.
More than
Yeah.
that? Or however?
It started, I think, at least last fall, because it was there when I first
Mhm.
went there in
Okay.
September. We have doubled there, so it's up until like last month, there were only 2 bins
Mhm.
that get picked up weekly, and they were overflowing, so we got 4 bins that are picked up
Mm.
weekly. I don't think they're overflowing at 4. I don't really know. I can ask Black Earth about it, but there is some interest in it for sure. I think it's a little, in my mind, I'm like, a whole 2 towns can't fill 4 bins in a week. It seems really crazy to me, but
So it also cost the
The town.
towns
yes,
double from what they were paying.
yeah. So we're not going over 4, but
Ever?
that is, at this point, no.
Does anybody know what percentage of the town population takes their trash to the landfill as opposed to having?
I think
No.
it's half.
Is it that much?
I think so. I have some number. Well, I know how many people get picked up by haulers, and I think it's, I think it's about half.
That's interesting. Okay, so I mean, so half the population of South Kingstown and Narragansett should be filling way more than 4.
Yeah.
If I had to guess, I would guess Narragansett. Although obviously you would know. I would guess Narragansett gets more percentage picked up by hauler, just based on like the population there,
What
like
they're like.
college students
No.
and
a
lots of
lot-
like
lot
short-term
of rentals,
rentals.
yeah.
And
what
like
they're like in Narragansett.
no, like just based on the population of who's like living there and the way that housing is used in Narragansett
Yeah.
is different.
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't want to trust college age renters to bring their trash to Rose Hill. You just want to get it taken away every week. So
Yeah.
definitely lease the property every week.
Yeah. So yeah, we can follow up next meeting or whenever you want. I don't know.
Would the town be open to hosting sites, like on town-owned property, not necessarily having town staff do the work, although that might be the simplest way to, that would be the most efficient way to get it done.
Yeah.
But, you know, certainly the community garden that we have is, well, the two, I guess they just started a new one at Wakefield School, but that's not a long-term solution to anything. So, so the one at Broad Rock has been there a bunch of years, and that's town property, so, and that's a logical first place to start doing this. So if people who are not part of that garden could bring stuff there to be to be composted, that would be one thing. But then it would also, we'd have to specify, like with the black earth bins at Rose Hill, you can put anything.
Yeah,
And,
they'd have to be.
and it would not be that, you know, but, I mean, like I have a backyard compost bin, so I put everything there except the stuff that
Yeah.
can't go there, and then I bring it to Rose Hill.
Yeah.
So, you know, I'm certainly not bringing everything I generate
Yeah.
to Rose Hill, just the stuff that I can't put
Yeah.
in the backyard.
Mhm.
And so to have like a tube, and I'm going to the dump anyway,
Yeah.
so it's not a big deal to do that. So it's trying to figure out how to get people to think about it, but you don't. But on the other hand, if we're going to stop at 4 bins at Rose Hill, you don't want to get everybody thinking about it
Yeah.
all
I
of a
know.
sudden, and then overwhelming
I know,
bins,
yeah.
and then
Yeah.
people won't bring it if there's no room, and that's
Yeah.
that's definitely not the right way to go.
I have one criticism about the Rose Hill,
Mm,
is the signage is not very big.
no.
I mean,
That's
you're
true.
trying to maneuver that corner, you're not looking at the sign over here, you're looking at who you're gonna run into.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
who's going to run into you?
yeah,
Um,
that's, to me, it just,
Mm-hmm. And those bins are so small that you don't even see them
Right.
either.
Right,
so.
compared to the dumpsters. The people are also, the last time I was there, throwing stuff in the bins in plastic bags, which I know they're not supposed to.
The compost?
Yeah,
Yeah.
into the compost bins. So that's something to deal with too. I'm sure Black Earth's not that happy about that. But I'd say the first thing is the community garden site. If
Yeah.
that can be a place, and maybe even some of the people who run that, I think it's some volunteer board of people or whatever. And I know somebody who has a garden there. I don't know who runs it, but I could certainly talk to them and see, you know, from their point of view, if that would be a welcome thing or not. But that's a
an
logical
option,
first place.
I know, I feel like URI too has so much land,
Mhm.
and it's like an agricultural
Mhm.
school, basically. So.
Quietly are composting,
Yeah.
not food waste, but like I know the Master Gardener greenhouses and stuff like that, and like all the apples and stuff
Mhm.
like that from like the East Farm. Like East Farm has composting
Yeah.
on site. It's just
Mhm.
quietly done and not
Let's
accessible.
make it loud.
Well,
in a good way. Yeah.
I heard that URI has tried to actually take their
Mhm.
cafeteria
Oh, yeah,
waste
yeah.
Oh, cool.
to like in the past.
Yeah,
And it's
not working.
it's been fits and starts, and it's never
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
gotten any traction, but it seems like it should, because they can just
So-
take it right there.
being an advisory board, you have to go through the town council to get
Mhm.
this
Yeah.
rolling, so,
That was my question. Yeah.
Yeah.
That is the next step, wouldn't it?
right.
So, okay.
So you just write them an email saying, you know, and what we wanna do.
Mhm.
And either they can hold it for further study or move it on.
Are you suggesting that at Broad Rock, that we suggest, are you suggesting that we suggest that they use Black Earth, or that they actually
Mm-mm.
compost, they do their,
That they,
their
yeah,
compost?
yeah. What I don't know, because I don't have a garden there, is whether everything is done by just the people who have the gardens, or whether there's any town staff involvement, or how that part would work. I guess the first question would be, would it be okay to use that site as a first site for this kind of
Mhm.
effort, and then we'd have to figure out how to make it work. Because I think if you enough people know about the gardens, I think that, well, I don't know. To start it as a volunteer, this is another place you can bring your compost if you don't have a place to compost at home. It would be a good logical first
Yeah.
place.
Small.
Even if you just
Yeah.
started with the people that are already involved with the gardens. It's like
Yeah.
proof of concept, like that it can
Right.
Yeah.
it can work,
Mhm.
and then you scale it.
Yeah.
But like gardeners are going to be good composters, like
Yeah.
right, like
Yeah.
so that you kind of get like
Yeah.
dip a toe in.
And they
Yeah.
must have something there. They must have a
I'm sure they
compost
must
pile there
compost there.
already.
I'm sure they do. I think they might have a 3-bin system. I toured it a few
Yeah.
years ago when I
Maybe
started
I'll
the
go over
Wakefield
there
Garden.
tomorrow. I've never been there. I'll check it out this week. I can go over there.
It's locked, so
Oh,
it's
okay.
like you kind of have to. I can't remember how you get in. You kind of have to like. I think there's like a phone number. They might be able
Do
to.
you know how to get in?
No.
Facilities.
I've never been there.
Okay.
It's Broad Rock, and it's got a nice big deer fence up, and I just remember I had to have somebody let me in.
Okay.
So I had to meet somebody there to get in. I
Okay.
think probably anyone with a place in there would have. I'm guessing it's a code. I'm sure you could like get the code from somebody, but there is like they have a little board with like notes and stuff like that. And I think there's like a phone number there to get in.
So does it make sense to maybe for you to look into it and see if that's an appropriate place?
Sure.
I mean, if there's a code and you can't just drop stuff, you know, maybe there'd be a bin outside or something, but then
Yeah.
somebody'd have to move it from one place to another. That's not a great idea. Maybe it would be outside the fence if it was going to be a public composting area.
It is probably better to have a drop spot and then bring it to the compost pile because unless you're there to watch people dump dump wrong stuff.
You don't want to contaminate it, right?
It is better to have that like weigh station kind of unless someone's there.
But then you need somebody to do that.
Yeah. Yes.
So that's, I think it makes sense to think through how it would actually happen.
Mhm.
Like what kind of staffing would be needed
Yep.
to do that before making the whole proposal, you know? So maybe to flesh out some more of the how would this work.
Yep.
So why don't you check out the site and then we'll get back. Yeah. I think it's gonna cost some money to
Oh,
have
yeah.
somebody
Oversee it.
do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Instead of man it.
Yep. Just some things I'll look at that and I'll see. I have this other book if anyone wants to flip through that, but like the Bible of community composting. But anyway, okay.
A little late reading.
A little light reading, yeah.
So you said that you said something about Rhode Island law and under 25
Mhm.
cubic yards. There's
No
no,
permits.
there's no.
There's less, yeah, I'll get that information for you because it just said, yeah, there's no permits, I don't think. It was just kind of, yeah.
So do we assume that the same goes for the town?
The
We're not
town
gonna make more
says
than-
nothing about composting whatsoever in anything.
So no
there's
law, no regs, no,
Yeah.
no
They defer
oversight.
to Rhode Island.
Good.
It'd be great if Rhode Island had that law, wouldn't it? Just
Mhm.
everybody has to compost.
Yeah. That Cal Recycle grant that I worked on was because there was SB 1383, which is the composting law in California. And in like ahead of it being implemented, they set up this grant program so smaller scale composters had like a chance against the big scale composters before the law was put in place. So that was nice.
Well, it could be initiated in Rhode Island. I mean, we could. I don't think that this committee can. It's
To
not
start
our
it, yeah.
task, but I mean, as individuals, we could try
Hmm.
to contact our legislators.
Yeah.
I shop with Sue Sosnowski. I'll talk with her about it.
Yeah, she's a farmer, she might be.
Oh, she's very supportive.
Yeah,
So, you
she's-
know, she was behind the Green Amendment. You have heard about the Rhode Island Green Amendment? That really is making progress, so I'll try.
Mac and
Oh
tea.
my God, sorry, I hope it didn't take a lot of time.
No, that's good.
This isn't the year. I'm gonna lose my mind.
I know, but, yeah.
There are just too many
Yeah.
terrible issues.
Crazy.
Well, thank you.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah. Happy to do it.
All the best for your work.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
It's a lot in 3 weeks. Well done.
Right.
Yeah, thank you for
Yeah,
giving
the
me
amount I
advice.
learned in the first week, I was like, oh my god. Yeah, it was really shocking. But yeah. Should I stick around or?
No, you can,
I mean, you're welcome to.
Oh, I'll stick
you can
around.
stay, yeah, we
Yeah,
can stay.
keep going.
Because actually, there is some
Ignore-
overflow, and I mean, I keep thinking as she's talking about, you know, the housing developments, and,
Mhm.
you know,
Right.
those are
Mhm.
good places.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So who did go to that meeting in April 24th? Did the,
meeting?
yeah, on the workforce housing?
Kim
Oh, I
went.
went,
I
yeah.
watched it on TV.
Well, it's the same. I mean,
Better, it's better.
it probably.
I said my jammies and watched
You can
it.
drink whatever you want.
I should go in person first time, you know.
Uh-huh. So, how'd it go?
Well, you know, they didn't talk anything about sustainability whatsoever. And Pete, is it Pete that came?
Mhm. Swain.
Right? He didn't really approach it either. So I just kind of put together my own list that we met on last whenever it was, 2 weeks ago. And, you know, came up with our own ideas from it. But basically, there are three locations. One's at Wakefield School, used to be Wakefield School, South Road School, and down at
That
Fairgrounds
place we don't
Road.
know, right?
Oliver Watson.
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 Yeah, well, I thought that was at URI. No.
No.
Okay. I don't even know where that is on Fairgrounds Road, but that's where the locations are. And they're basically most interested in getting it under budget.
Yeah.
And hopefully working with nonprofit builders like Habitat for Humanity, which would be excellent. But it didn't sound to me like they even thought it would go through because it, you know, the expense of it. But, you know, that remains to be seen. So,
So what stage are they, where is the town at in terms of its process for going forward?
they haven't even chosen a builder yet, or builders, or, you know,
They
Did-
haven't put an RFP out yet, right?
with an RFP.
The request for proposal, so they don't even have, which is like what they would need to do to send out in order to get like builders or
Yeah.
To
roofs.
apply.
I don't think that
I'm
they've put an
not sure
RFP
of.
out.
I
Yeah.
would, you know, I wouldn't,
I think part of Pete's idea was that the committees that have an interest in relevant pieces of how this would all happen would provide some input before the
Before the
RFP is
yeah.
written to try to inform that. But I don't know who's writing the RFP. Is that the next thing that's gonna happen? The comments that you put together, who would that go to? Does anybody want comments? I guess I'm not sure of what the process.
My
is-
impression from Peter Swain was that he wanted us to kind of put some thoughts together and send them
Maybe to his
to
committee?
his committee.
Yeah,
Okay, okay.
And
for their
then-
next meeting, which is next week, I think?
Their next meeting?
Yeah. So
It
that's
was
what we
in
did.
some-
We-
Yeah,
Yeah.
he wanted to have our thoughts for the
Gotcha.
town council.
Okay,
That's the ultimate destination, whether it goes directly there or through Peter Swain's committee, that's not clear to me, but that's why I thought it's really important that the beginning of our statement would be kind of emphasizing the need for sustainability, like the importance of sustainability for people, for people's health, for the economy, and then for the environment. You know, like to have that at the beginning so that they would even take it serious, you know, before we go into details of, you know, clean energy and etc. So
Yeah.
So they have their next meeting is actually 5/22.
that's very soon.
Yeah, that's Thursday, right?
Yes.
Yes. So they have the next AHCC meeting is 5/22.
Are there any rules about us sending comments to a fellow committee member on a different committee? So if we wanted to just, mark this up and send it on over to them, is that okay?
To the gentleman who was here
Yeah,
last month?
Peter, yeah, okay.
We got a pretty good, well, Christine really put it together, but a nice compilation.
Well, we had a good consultation, I
Yeah.
think.
But do we want to add Patrick's information to that?
I think incorporating some of what he said, I think the point about looking at energy from a total energy cost over the useful life of the facility versus the upfront,
Yeah, that's
Inst-
very good. Yeah.
that would be a good thing to include.
Yeah.
I think the title should refer to the workforce housing in there somewhere so that it's clear that that's what the comments are about. And I would be a little more, you guys put it together, but I wouldn't come out and say South Kingstown's going to hell. Like the increased environmental degradation, and I don't think we're there yet, and I think people listen better when they're not feeling defensive. So I would just start off by saying that in order to protect these things that are important, we should do things in a sustainable way rather than, right, we're all going to die.
Can I just throw out a crazy idea that I've really been thinking about a lot is that the Wakefield School site, and I think that there is a movement in town that is behind this idea. It's already got the Olmsted Park right there with Saugatucket Park. I think there's a real desire by a large percentage of the population here to demolish the school and increase the size of that park. Like, it's really our only town-owned piece of land adjacent to the Saugatucket.
Yeah.
Environmentally, if you got rid of this school, you got rid of all that impermeable surface, you revitalized that as a site with, indigenous plants and kind of make it like a green space for the town. Maybe Patty Alley's been doing that community garden. Maybe you continue to use it as a community hub. Maybe you do on-site composting.
I was like, and a composting hub?
Right, like maybe you all of a sudden have like, you start getting a farmer's market back into the heart of town and like all of that. I think from a sustainability perspective, I think there's an emotional attachment to that site that like people would like to see that as a community hub and would like to see that park expanded. But also from the sustainability side of things, if you could decrease some of the impermeable surface heading down to the Saugatucket, you kind of revitalize it, you go indigenous, you have all these like native plants, and there's like, you can create like all sorts of educational component behind it. There's all sorts of things you could do. I just think that like saying that we're definitely to the point of, I don't know, I don't want to give in completely saying that we're going to turn that into housing, because I think that like generations going forward are going to say like, what a bunch of idiots. These people
Yeah.
like gave up this beautiful site. The town already owned it. Like all
Like
you had to do.
The commons.
Right. Like you're going to look back and be like, why would they ever do that? Because once it's gone, it's gone. You can never get that back into
Yep.
town hands. And I really would love to see, I don't know if you guys feel it, that's the role of the committee, but like to push a little bit of saying like there is an environmental role in keeping that as a green space. It doesn't, it can be returned to a green space rather. It isn't right now because it's got a ton of impermeable surface.
How about if that's like a paragraph at the bottom that talks specifically about Wakefield School, that there's a higher purpose for this site, and that this is just to talk about workforce housing wherever it may be, wherever it may be, and then that at the end. I think that's, and I know that the Economic Development Committee is really against turning it into housing, although I think they want to turn it into something else. But still, that site really needs its own focus because it is so central to town.
Do you know what else?
I'm not sure.
They wanted like a mixed use development. Like they wanted to kind of turn it into like
Incubator space.
incubator space and all that. So they wanted to keep the building.
Okay.
I would love to see the building torn down and like turn that into a bigger park. Like
Yeah.
I don't know, just.
It's a good idea.
But that site deserves its own
Right,
conversation,
like, it's got
separate.
the
Well, that's,
bike
you know-
path, it's got the
Yeah.
So,
Sorry Sanctuary, it's like
Yeah.
all,
Yeah.
it's such a central site
Yeah.
that I
Yeah.
really don't think it should be privatized.
Yeah, agreed.
That's my 2 cents.
So that'd be a nice thing to put at the you know, that these are all the things that when
Right.
you're thinking about doing housing, workforce housing, we should consider. But then, by the way, yeah, we would support having the Wakefield site have its own separate conversation.
That
Rather
Saugatucket,
than
I mean, we
lumping it
just got
together.
that whole presentation on how badly impacted the Saugatucket River is
Mhm.
and the downstream impacts of that because it's just got all this runoff. So
Yeah.
maybe one little way to mitigate some little percentage of that.
Yeah.
So, we are a little bit in a time crunch. Because if we submit that document to them, like the day or even the day before of their meeting, they will not read it.
No, it would go in there. It would go in there like the same thing we do, like the community, not community comments. What's it called?
Correspondence, public
Correspondence, thank you.
correspondence.
Yeah,
Yes,
they get it.
it will go into, yes, but will they read everything during the meeting, like the 2 pages or 3 pages? Will they?
You're saying
I got
town,
this-
town council.
No. This is just the AHCC
Oh.
on Thursday.
Yeah,
just
do
the
you think they
AHCC.
would read?
Yeah,
I
All
would,
the
read, I would
comments?
read it before our
Okay.
meeting.
Probably
It
would.
only takes 10 minutes. Like,
Yeah.
you know, flip through it.
Okay.
To see all this go
Mhm.
forward, so
yeah.
I think it's
we
more
just
important
got
to get
today.
it in there
Yeah.
before they like
When you
move to go to the RFP. Like
Oh,
that kind of gets
absolutely,
us like
absolutely.
gets
Yeah.
our
Yeah.
foot in the door of
Yeah.
them
Right.
kind of feeling
Mhm.
like they're in some way obligated to reach back out to us and say
Mhm.
like
Yes,
let's
yes,
loop
that-
them
that
back
would
in
help.
again when
Right.
we do this. I don't know. I think
Yeah.
even if it's under the gun,
Um,
I'm
so-
happy to write up a thing
I
if you
wanna,
want.
I wanna, gosh, I mean, everybody, but you were there. Your sense was, when you watched the presentation, that it was all 3 or nothing?
Yeah, pretty much. That's the way they were
I mean,
looking.
that's what Patty Alley said to me when I asked her. I was like, so I don't
Yeah.
know.
Like they
if-
think they're gonna go like get one company to come in and want all 3 sites.
I mean, but then there's also the fact that that it's expensive and they're gonna have a hard time finding a commercial developer that's gonna be able to do it
Yeah,
for
especially the cost of
for what
building
they want to sell
materials
them for.
at this point.
So
But-
that's the biggest challenge is right
I
finding.
can't see like somebody like if they were talking about like Habitat. How do you like Habitat can't undertake all of that, can they? I don't know. I can't imagine.
Well, that might be why they want to bundle it so that it won't go to a nonprofit.
You think the
mean-
town wants it to not go to town?
I don't know, well, the town council appeared that, they thought that was a good idea, but.
But there's still there's still, yeah, debate about Wakefield in particular. I think it's worth throwing it out there, just that this is, yeah.
I do think that there would be public support of that,
Mhm.
but it'd be expensive. I don't know. The almighty dollar.
So are there particular, I said something about sort of the tone at the start to kind of readjust that, the title to deal with workforce housing, adding a paragraph at the back about Wakefield site being special and that deserves other, another, whatever, discussion somewhere. I think also in the section under water and inline water sprinklers, I think that our committee, based on what Elizabeth told us at that presentation, I think I would add a line in there just saying that that our committee would, would recommend that that the town investigate banning inline water systems for all new construction.
Okay.
In addition,
Right, that's
to
a good
that,
idea.
that just to kind of throw that out there, that this is like this would be a good place to just get it into the record, maybe.
The other thing I was going to say is I think it was under land. I liked that you talked about natural lawns and meadows, I would put in a point about like going with an entirely indigenous landscape.
Yeah, just native
requiring a native-
species.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Maybe even just saying native species there.
Native, yeah.
This is great.
We had a question regarding the red line.
Fair question.
The red that's highlighted? The
Yes.
Stormwater stays on site?
Right,
Yeah,
because-
isn't that the law? I mean, isn't that?
Well, it's kind of weird because stormwater is not always the same amount, you know?
Right.
What is the law? I mean, how many
Oh,
inches
Oh, I see.
has to
Like
stay
the
on
average
site?
amount of rainfall has to stay on site?
Because you cannot regulate that because there can be an extraordinary storm.
Right,
and
right,
Nobody
right,
can
right.
conform to that
Right.
law, you know?
Didn't
So-
they just change it in the town regs?
I was at a meeting today and they designed these features to hold 1 inch of rainfall
Right.
and then everything else just overflows.
Right.
So,
Rain gardens and stuff.
yeah, it's like, water quality,
Um,
all those things that were put in by public
Right, so
services.
it just this has to be differently worded so that it conforms to what you just said, you know?
Mm.
Or looking ahead, should be, twice or 3 times what the current recommended volume is. I mean, how many it would be easy enough for somebody who knows where the data are to look up how many days did we have more than an inch of rain,
Yeah,
in the last year. And I'm sure it's,
several.
yeah. So,
And how much a normal, like a natural landscape can absorb, you know?
Mhm, mhm.
Like there are limits to that as well.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Is this when we were talking about basing it on projected values as opposed to historic values? Is that one?
No, we didn't really talk about that in that regard.
The other thing I was going to say was that under 3 main concerns, I would just, I don't know, I was thinking, you're talking about like South Kingston in general, but we could tailor a little bit specific, especially the Wakefield and South Road site.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not that familiar with the Oliver Watson house. But those 2 sites specifically are directly adjacent to like either the river or wetlands.
Yeah.
Everything down from the South Road site is wetlands. So
Mhm.
just saying like how specifically important, like environmentally important those sites are to not impact with like rainfall, because they're both high sites.
Right.
Yeah. I didn't realize that about the South Road, but yeah.
It's pretty high, and then it goes down to that little man-made pond that's down there, but it's all natural wetlands around it. Like a long time ago, supposedly.
The one that's on the path at Curtis
By
Corner.
Curtis Corner,
Yeah, okay.
But it is, at this point, it's kind of, I think it's kind of like stream fed too.
Mhm.
I don't know. It's definitely been tampered with. I don't know, entirely man-made or something.
Okay.
Anybody else? For suggestions, edits?
So,
I mean, I think it would be great if, I don't know if you guys need to meet to do this or to just add the things that we just talked about and just send it on to them as a, these are our comments at the moment.
That'll be there for Thursday.
Yeah.
So I'm sure their agenda's already been posted, so that could be an issue as well.
Mm.
And if it's on the calendar, it usually means that it's been posted.
so they can't change the agenda usually, I
I-
mean, we change ours sometimes, and
Well,
it's different for them.
But if it's community
I mean, if it's correspondence.
Correspondence.
correspondence,
Yeah, I mean, did we get Peter's email? We could just send it to him directly and say, please share with your committee whenever you meet next or whatever.
Claudia's email.
Wonderful. Oh,
I know, right, I wouldn't. I wouldn't trust that, just, you know. I know I have him in here somewhere.
I think these were all great ideas that we had today. Question, Elizabeth, do you think you would be able to write this up? Because like what we did today, incorporate it into the draft.
Yeah, put it into
That
the
would be fantastic because I have to bring a friend to surgery tomorrow. And then I have a meeting for the conference on Wednesday. So it's.
Did you
I don't
send
have
it?
the
I'm trying to
brain
remember.
space.
Did you send it as a PDF or did you send it to me as
It was a Word
Word
document.
Okay,
so
so I
you
can edit
just
it right in there.
Right.
Yep,
Yep.
I can do that. I'll do that tonight.
That's great.
So
Thank you.
what were we going to add from Patrick's?
The long-term cost, vice versa, the short-term
For energy
investment,
stuff.
You know,
Okay.
yeah,
All right. Is that the only
for
thing
the
we
clean
wanna add?
energy. I think so.
Figure out where the heck it is. I can look it up.
Let's see, yeah. I switched it over my phone, but not my iPad, so in my inbox. I don't have Peter's,
Yeah, total energy construction over the life of over the useful life of the building. He says here too that Rhode Island Energy will also assist in these efforts, meaning that they may have a way to help. But that's a detail that doesn't need to happen. Batteries in a grid. I don't know that we need to get into that at this point. Anyway, and the stuff in there about charging vehicles is in there already. So, yeah, I think that's enough of that.
Oh, no, we did say this. We said plans need to consider not only data about past measurements of drought and severe precipitation and flooding, but must consider scientific projections for the future. So that was.
Right. Mhm.
so do you have Peter Swain's contact? I don't have.
Oh, let me.
No, my.
No,
this
how
is-
did
this-
he find?
I'm
this?
gonna. I'll text him
Yeah.
and ask him to, and I'll copy you.
Perfect.
What's your email, Elizabeth? I mean, your
Phone?
Yeah. I guess I don't have. Do I not have your phone number? That's crazy. I don't have your phone number. What's your phone number?
401? 741? It's okay. We're all gonna have my phone number. 1922. I'm gonna get a whole bunch of phone numbers. I don't
all
think
our
so.
fans,
would be
all of our
shocking.
fans are going to call you.
I put it on every single thing that goes out for the entire school, for all the PTO stuff. I don't get that many calls.
Everybody knows you. I think you.
Good. So okay. High school building project. Anything interesting going on?
Just for sake of time, there's not a whole lot sustainability related going on, shockingly. But just an FYI, if anybody does want it, so we're now just about at the end of the month, we'll be at like the stage 3 submission. So right now they're getting like the DEM stuff. They're doing soil testing and all that stuff. And so June 5th, there is a community engagement forum. So that's like when they really do like the kind of, you don't have to come with a whole bunch of back knowledge to follow the meeting. They show you all the pretty pictures and they explain it and they do the dog and pony show. And it'll be in the town council chambers. And that's when they are planning it. So that is usually pretty
Do you think that's going to be packed?
interesting. The last one was not as packed as I expect. It's a lot more than who comes to one of the meetings, but they're not usually packed, which is weird. Like, I don't know. I'm surprised. No. always surprised.
What
but
time,
yeah,
do you know what time?
they haven't solidified a time yet, but I can send it out when I get the emails from them. So, but they're in the like stages. There isn't anything super exciting. Oh, they are gonna do bird safe glass though.
Really?
One tiny one. They did say
Bird
that
safe
at the
glass.
last meeting that Janine went to. They did verbally commit to that.
To what?
Verbally. Bird safe glass, so that it, you know
Ah,
how
bird
birds,
safe,
so
yeah,
it's
okay.
got the reflective whatever, so that they know that it's glass and not a continuation of that.
Where they were flying.
That is the only little thing that I have heard lately. Janine and I have not been able to actually attend them. We've been watching afterwards. It's life is busy.
You end up with a ghost of a bird on the window.
That's what is currently at the high school is little black cutouts. But I think that they have those little like dotted glass things now, so that it's.
That's good.
I think the people inside the building you don't even notice, right?
No.
Yeah, you don't even see it, but the birds see it from the outside. So
That's good.
I don't even know why they decided. Janine and I brought it up a couple of times. I don't know the background to why they finally committed, but they did. So there you go. That's it. That's the down and dirty.
It's so much easier to identify like with birds than with abstract things like energy. And it's just,
I swear, I still think it's all comes down to money. And I'm guessing
It was no big deal.
it wasn't a big price point difference. Is
Yeah.
my assumption.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Otherwise, there would have been like multiple meetings about it, I'm sure.
Oh,
and much discussion and much tabling it for
Yeah.
study or something. I don't know. That's just my guess.
Okay, so if Patrick comes through, then we've got our 7th member. But has anybody talked to anybody else about joining the committee? We could have somebody. Okay.
Kathy Curley's partner, David, what's his last name? He works at the Bay campus.
Oh, yeah,
David, it doesn't matter because he's not into it.
Okay. Okay. I guess I can't say, does anybody have anything else, because it's not on the agenda. So, we would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Well, next meeting.
the next meeting.
Oh,
is,
shoot, the next
issue.
meeting thing, yes. Goodness.
Has to be changed because somebody can't make it.
Neither Janine nor I will be here on June 16th. So how's the next day? Tuesday the 17th?
That would work. Yeah, I could not do the following week, but the next day was fine.
No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah,
So
so
Tuesday.
Tuesday, June 17th. Are we all good with that? Okay, good, great, thanks.
Can you let Janine know that, so we don't forget to.
yeah.
Sure.
Well, she's already coming where I'm going, so
Oh,
she's not gonna be here anyway.
No, I mean, so she can put it on her
Coming,
calendar for the
going.
next.
Yeah, yeah. She'll,
She's coming and you're going?
no,
Where
no,
she's
no,
going- she's
we're
coming where
both,
I'm going.
she's both coming where I'm going, yeah. She's
Okay.
going where
Are
I'm
you okay
going.
with that, Mark? You're fine with Tuesday?
Yes, fine. No
Thank
problem.
you. All right, so adjourn, motion?
Yes.
Yes.
So motion.
Moved.
Second, yes,